Yep.
It's me again, isn't it?
It is.
It's Big Pun. Me and Big Pun have a lot in common, and by a lot in common, I mean not a lot in common. Right now, I'll stick with the same uh, way of doing things. At the end, I'll make some recommendations. Although I do think it is going to be impossible to not say "Still Not a Playa," since that is by far Big Pun's biggest hit. So we'll just go ahead and say if you're looking for one track, right, that went into the ether, that's the track off this album. So Big Pun, also it's short for Big Punisher, Christopher Lee Rios, born November 10th, 1971, sadly passed away February 7th, 2000. So he was only 28 years old, guys. And as you can tell from the second that he says a word on this, he is from the South Bronx.
Yeah.
He is the most South Bronx sounding person ever. So it's for those that may not know New York and you want to know like what's the difference between how New Yorkers sound, that is the Bronx accent right there, especially the Puerto Rican Bronx accent, right? He was discovered by fellow Bronx rapper Fat Joe, and he was part of a group called the Terror Squad with Triple Sace, great rap name, and Cuban Link as well. And his first album, Jealous One's Envy, which sometimes is shortened as Jose, which goes, so this is his second album. Big Pun signed with Fat Joe's label Terror Squad Productions, and Loud Records is the subsection in 1997, and this was his debut studio album on that record label. I should say that the Jealous One Still Envy is not his albums. That's Fat Joe's album that he was guesting
Yeah, I was
on.
about
So
to
this
say
is
that.
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
was.
Sorry about that. That's why it's Joe, right? Like
Yep.
Jealous One's Envy, right? So I apologize. Clean my own stack right there. This album, when it was released in 1998, had great commercial success and actually was pretty critically acclaimed. It was nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys this year. It debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200 and became the first hip hop recording by a Latino solo act to receive a platinum status. Along the way, he did, before unfortunately passing away, have one more album called Yeah, Three E's Baby in 2000, which peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200. It was not posthumous, though. Big Pun was still alive when it debuted, but he died 2 months after its release. So growing up, Big Pun, or Christopher, if we want to go by his his confirmation name, so to speak, he grew up in the Soundview neighborhood in the Bronx, had 2 sisters and a brother, and regularly played basketball and trained in boxing. In fact, he was considered to be a pretty good athlete. It was a little bit of a hard knock life for him. He moved out at 15 and was homeless for a period of time in the late 80s and early 90s. He also, interestingly, and he has a very interesting life, he received a big settlement from the city of New York. He was playing in a park in 1976, and it must have gone on for a long time because, like, 76 is a long time from when it was settled, this case, like almost a decade, but he received a lot of money as a result of breaking his leg during this accident. And actually, he used that money to buy a house and marry his high school sweetheart by the name of Liza. Unfortunately, it was not always a happy life for Big Pun due to 2 reasons. One was depression, which he sort of always attributed to kind of the PTSD, right, of his childhood. And the other is overeating. And you have to bring this up, unfortunately, with Big Pun, because it is what contributed to his early death. Pretty much between the ages of 18 and 21 is when it started to get a little bit out of hand for him. He, between the ages of 18 and 21, went from 180 pounds to 300 pounds during that time. Unfortunately, by the end of his life, he had tried to go to the Duke University Weight Loss Center, but at the time of death, he was over 600 pounds in terms of what his weight was. His weight was a constant sense of sort of argument between him and his friends who were trying to get him healthy. He kind of had some issues with like eating around folks, and then he'd binge eat. And there was some bulimia as well. So unfortunately, that the dual battles with depression and overeating were narratives in his life. It's brought up a little bit in this album, but it was definitely a sensitive subject for him, so it's not going to be something that tracks a lot in the lyrics of this album. But it was a part of his narrative to pretty much everyone that he knew. Unfortunately, he kind of has that sort of that, not quite, but sort of that origin story that someone like a Sublime had, where just as they're starting to become very popular, right? Alice in Chains, another one, like they become popular, but then unfortunately the sort of the demons catch up to them very quickly after they become popular. So he never was really able to like fully become the star that I think maybe he was. He was being sought out by people like Jennifer Lopez for rap projects and stuff. But his health, especially in the last year and a half, really declined. So yeah, there's more with it. Unfortunately, there was like an extended sort of posthumous argument between Jelly Bean Benitez, who probably we haven't talked about since Madonna, right? She was one of Madonna's early producers and early boyfriends, right? At least in her career. He owned the publishing rights to a lot of the tracks on an unreleased Big Pun album. And then Liza Rios, his wife, was involved in a dispute with about the royalties and about putting that album out. So because of that, like we really haven't gotten a lot of posthumous stuff from him. There is a compilation album from 2001 that's sort of like a pieced together thing called Endangered Species. So yeah, but he is considered to be one of the premier Latin rappers. His genres are East Coast New York hip hop, Latin hip hop, a little bit of gangster rap, a little bit of that like Gambino rap, and hardcore hip hop as well. So yeah, I'll weave in some other stuff as we talk about it. But Josh, let's start with you. What'd you think of this one?
Yes, surprisingly not an album I was familiar with. He always came up in terms of Still Not a Player. That song, was very popular, but I never sought out the rest of his stuff, and I always knew that he died, young, sadly. But I thought this album was pretty good. I thought mainly because it just kind of showed the promise that he had as a rapper. He's one of those artists that I feel like his flow feels so effortless. He definitely reminded me of Notorious B.I.G. in that way, and that I felt like this was a promising young artist that was just getting started and then like cut down. And I feel like that comes through a lot in his wordplay on this album, his bravado and his just confidence as a rapper shines through on this. I thought he also made good use of guest artists on this album. I like the from Wyclef to Fat Joe and Inspector Deck. I like that track, Trace Lay Chase. That was really solid. The album is long. That was a detriment to me, but that's par for the course now with albums over an hour. This one was 72 minutes. Another common critique I have is the skits. I do not really enjoy the skits on this album, with the exception of the Funk Flex interview. I thought that was hilarious, just because Funk Flex was laughing and couldn't stop. That's kind of in the middle of the album. There is 24 tracks, so your mileage may vary on that, depending on your tolerance for skits. But overall, I thought this was, enjoyable rap. I guess I was a little surprised because I didn't know really what to expect, and it was just kind of solid at the end of the day. And I think too that I can't recall I didn't write down like in terms of like beats or anything like that, but I think more so than anything his rapping ability is what the highlight for me was. It's definitely like New York style rap, which was nice to come back to after a little break. But yeah, nothing too complicated on my thoughts on this album. I thought it was just kind of an enjoyable album, and yeah, thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar with you, Josh.
Yeah.
I was definitely impressed with. I mean, there's some parts where he's rapping and he's just like the flow, da 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 da, and it's just like, and the
Yeah.
rhymes are coming out, and you're like, holy! It's like a machine gun of like, just a flow. And that actually, and I agree with you kind of on the skits. I'm like, man, we're still doing skits in 19, like this in 1998, but I guess that was still going on for a couple of years. But or the cap in the back and the back of the yak or whatever, they got the
Yeah.
cap in the back and the back of the yak, like that skit, that that part where they were going back and forth there, that kind of made me laugh. So, but yeah, I definitely see heard his talent as a rapper on here for sure. And in addition to that, I thought a lot of the beats were really good. I thought a lot of the samples were really good. Musically, there wasn't really anything in here that I didn't like. I thought it was kind of interesting that that he did totally like, and we've heard this here and there before, where someone it's not like they take a part of a sample that's been used already. It's like, let's do the whole sample from Deep Cover, right? And like, let's just let's just make let's do the Don't Cry alternative lyrics to that, right? And I'm kind of like, all right, now I love the beat to that. I love the sample. Like that Dre Snoop song is great. But I'm just like, wow, he did basically the same song, and clearly he's got different different lyrics and whatnot. But I like that. It just seemed like, did you really need it? Couldn't you do another beat behind that? It seemed like very, I don't know. I just, when you're copying that much,
Right.
I don't know.
But also that's a Sly and the Family Stone song, Deep Cover. So in fairness, it's like a third down hand.
Right.
Down. It's a great song, but yeah.
And I knew that Dre didn't, like totally, write that or anything like that. But it's just, we covered that when we do like the Tupac. It was like back to back. Tupac did a song that maybe Biggie did or somebody else did. It was the same.
Yeah.
It was the same exact track, right? And I was like, wow, that's, I don't know.
Well, that happens in hip hop. Like I always think of like
Can't Nobody
that
Hold Me Down.
Jay-Z song that samples Me and My Girlfriend by Tupac, like clearly, but people talk about, I'm like, well, it's basically a direct rewrite of Me and My Girlfriend. It's 90s, Bonnie and Clyde, right? Like is the song he does with Beyonce, right? That's Me and My Girlfriend by, I guess it's technically Machiavelli, but yeah.
And I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Maybe it's a fine line. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but like between like a part here, a part there, that's like a very similar thing, right? Versus this is the entire, it's like they took the entire tape and then just laid new vocals on top of it, right? So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that, but if you're going to do it, I guess do it to the Deep Cover, because that's a great beat. But generally speaking, I liked it. I agree, Josh. This is a freaking long album, and the skits, I don't know. And I'm kind of done with skits by now. There's a couple of funny moments, but overall, like skits that go over 2 minutes long, basically talking about how many ladies he gets with the DJ. It's like that bravado, that over the top. And I think part of it's like tongue in cheek, because he's talking about like, I'm the best at all sexual positions, and he's talking about that. He's like, really? Yeah. You can hit them all at 600 pounds? So I definitely like know that he's, kind of playing into that kind of thing.
My favorite sex line on this album is, be good, I might put away the wood and give you the mustache, which made me absolutely laugh out loud in my car as I heard that. So
there are some funny moments like that. Yeah, I was definitely laughing more at some of the bravado here than I was at the Kid Rock. He's more clever. I think he's a better wordsmith than Kid Rock for sure. So I appreciated that. But there were some parts in there I was like, geez, that was graphic. Okay, so that's a little bit. That's always going to, again, the test. Can I roll down my windows and listen to this? No, I can't. I can't do that, right? Like for multiple reasons. But having said all that, I think musically this is pretty solid. I am very impressed with his rapping ability. I don't know where he lands on the list of all-time rappers, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a list. I'm not the best person to critique like who should be at the top of that list, but I found it impressive, and his flow really, like I think you're right, Josh. It seems effortless, and the fact that people can just do this. Like I still am curious, is like how much does he practice? Did he have to practice those lines, or did they just come out? Like I am always amazed by really good rappers, really good MCs that can kind of just spitball this stuff and just come up and super clever, super They got to be really focused on what they're saying and how they're enunciating and all that stuff. And I think he does a really excellent job on that. So yeah, a lot of parallels to Biggie, I would say. I mean, for multiple reasons, with their origin, that their size for sure, the way that they command the mic, and kind of the gritty nature of a lot of these songs. It's kind of like it's a very street, gritty sound that he has. And generally speaking, I enjoyed it. So yeah, I liked it. Thumbs up.
Well, unlike you guys, I was very familiar with this album. This was, growing up in the shadow of New York, this was played all the time, especially by everybody, really. But like there was a definite claim above and beyond to my friends who were like Latino, right? Like because this was, they're coming out. And we've talked about the late 90s, right? This incredible influx of Latin artists, right? And we've talked about it in the context of pop and rock and stuff, but here's the hip hop influence, right? Like Big Pun is stepping as a premier MC into the spot. And much like Selena, right? Who would have been this huge supernova pop star that crossed over to America, but unfortunately she died young, right around the same age, a little younger than Pun. Pun, same thing, right? And so I think because he was like a supernova, like he had this album and then he faded out, right? People forget how good a rapper Big Pun is, and he doesn't have to hold anybody's bags. His flow is right up there with everybody. Maybe you won't say he's like, Biggie or Rakim, that type, but he isn't as far off as a lot of other guys are, right? Like his lyrics are funny, they're clever, there's a melody to like especially his end rhyme, right? And his mid rhyme at different times. He has this great ability to write a couplet, but it doesn't seem like a couplet because it's just like one flow from word one to the end of it, right? And so it seems like it's like one verse, but it's really like a couplet, right? With the rhyming along the way. And he'll do things like he'll rhyme within that couplet like 4 different words with the same sound, right? In the middle rhyme or the end rhyme, so that it has almost like a melodic sound to it. And yes, this album's a little bit long. You get rid of most of the skits, right? An hour and 12 minutes is longer than you'd want, but there's bangers all throughout this album, right? Obviously, most people know Still Not a Player, the version that they played on the radio. First Time Joe, right? Like I remember he was another big artist. We're going to cover him later. It is always funny. I'm not talking Fat Joe, by the way. That was always a thing. There was Fat Joe and then there was just Joe, right? Like by himself, which always was a funny thing, but one of the best, hook singers of his time, probably an underrated hook singer along with a good R&B artist. Man, that song with Pun and Noriega was on the radio all the time. The yo, you came up, what with Noriega. That song, like immediate. I hadn't heard it in so long. I'm like, oh shit, this song's a banger. Like, but I haven't heard it in forever. And like when I hear that song, I think of like driving in the car with my friends, like high school time, right, going into college, and just this. Like late at night, right? And Funkmaster Flex, like, yo, Funkmaster Flex, we're gonna play some Big Pun. It's just that it's so embedded with that time, right? And like Hot 97 in particular. And you would just hear it like out, right, in the world. And it's just, to me, it's like Big Pun's one of these like great what if cases, because I always kind of bring up his name as like one of the more underrated guys in hip hop. And this album, it's been a while since I listened to it, but it's just a reminder to me of like the talent he had. It would have been interesting if and when he would have done the album where he addressed the darkness, a little bit more directly, kind of like Biggie did, because Biggie's sort of secret sauce was he had all the darkness, but also the funny, in it. This one's a little bit more the player and the funny. And you get the feeling like he wasn't quite ready to go there yet, but it would have been interesting to hear what his take would have been. When he did this. And I love the Latin influence of this, even like the sketches, like the Tres Leches sketch and stuff like that. It's just, it's there. And you're right. Josh, there's Black Thoughts on here from The Roots. You got Joe and Wyclef Jean singing hooks on here. Noriega.
And Busta Rhymes, right?
Yeah.
Busta
Rhymes, yep. Prodigy's on here as well at different the guys from Dead Prez are on here, a group we haven't talked about at all, but plus the Terror Squad guys, right, are on here as well. He also samples contemporary. Like there's a song where both Notorious B.I.G. and Cannabis are both sampled like within the song. I think it's Super Lyrical, the song with Black Thought on it, that's in there. So I really like this album quite a bit, and it's kind of like a hidden gem in the hip hop area. It's also an album that I always think of as being a really big album because it was a really big album in New York, right? In the surrounding areas. I don't know if it was quite as big outside of like the tri-state area, but I could tell you like in that area, in like New York, North Jersey, Central Jersey, like that area, this was like right there with anything that people were playing as like a first choice type album. So, thumbs up. And like I said, one of the great what ifs, Big Pun, unfortunately.
Well, it's like he also wasn't around long enough to kind of promote it to get to more widespread exposure. Like probably his next album could have been his breakthrough or something in a way.
Well, and he was struggling, with the photogenic stuff.
Yeah.
You look at pictures of him when he's younger, he's like, I won't say model handsome, but he's a handsome dude. And so it's another thing, like a what if, right? You know what I mean? If like you could see kind of like how there would have been this lane where, you know what I mean? He would have had like a persona.
Yeah. And it's not that he was just 600 pounds. He was 698 pounds when he died. Yeah. So holy crap.
Well, it's an eating disorder. You know what I mean? It's,
Big time.
We talk about mental health and depression and physical stuff, but it was his lifelong battle, that and the combination. I'm sure the depression also played into it. So,
we'll do this in reverse order. This album was ranked number 512 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums and number 58 in 1998, 2,964 of all time. His highest rated album on Best Ever Albums did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Big Pun is ranked number 2,202 of overall artist rankings. John, did you give your songs? You did
I would say if you were going to check out Still Not a Play, obviously is going to be what you're going to hear in the montage.
I even knew that one.
Yeah. I'd recommend, I like Super Lyrical early on. I like Twins with Fat Joe. You Came Up with Noriega. Those are probably the 4 tracks I would recommend checking out first. And the other, I'm Not a Player. The original version of Still Not a Player is another good one too. Any other ones that popped out to you guys?
No, I think those are the highlights.
This was kind of like an album where they all kind of stood out in a very similar way to me. Like I like them all almost equally in a way. So nothing like that stood out.
Is it controversial or homerism? Like, you cheer for the home team a little bit to say, the more I listen to like New York MCs, I'm like, well, of course New York's got the best lyrical MCs.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure that is, but they're really good. I mean, they're up there, right? I don't think anybody's going, well, those Kansas MCs
there's great hip hop anywhere, but there's great hip hop everywhere, but the more I listen to like 90s hip hop, the more I'm like, the lane that New York has is they've got the dudes with the best flow.
Well,
they also even this week we talked about Q-Tip and Big Pun, right? And both times we said, "Oh, the flow is great." And Biggie, Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, right? Yeah. Like if we're talking like elite tier flows, right? Like, and I'm not knocking other hip hops, but like the special sauce for New York is like the lyricism.
It also bonus points when the accents really come in too, like the heavy New York accent. It's like got an attitude, an extra layer of.
Well, because Biggie's got the Brooklyn accent,
yeah,
and Pun's got the Bronx accent for sure. So yeah.